Wait, so are you saying that Club Penguin wasn't supposed to, blow up?
Like Lance has said this before, he didn't know how successful it would be. He knew it would be successful, but could we imagine that it would be as successful as it was? No, not a chance.
Hello, my name is Ariel, and you're listening to Never Have I Ever, a podcast about experiences I never had. Welcome to episode 5 of this podcast series. So if you're just joining us, feel free to subscribe as new episodes come out each week. This is part 3 of the Club Penguin case study, as this week I'm here to tell you that never have I ever worked in my dream job. So before my current route to become a journalist, my childhood dream was to work for Club Penguin in Canada. For those who are unaware, Club Penguin is a popular MMORPG where you waddle around, meet your friends as a penguin. It was acquired by Disney back in 2007. So yeah, my goal was to work for that gaming company. I even had a plan. I would study IT, work for Halfbrick or Hipster Whale, so the guys who made Fruit Ninja or Crossy Roads and their Australian gaming companies. Then after a few years of domestic work experience, I'd migrate to Canada, live with my aunt, do some local jobs there, then finally move to Kelowna. Yeah, it's long, but I was willing to do it. So much so that my dad was telling me to aim high and try to make it to UNSW's IT course, which had an 8-star entry rank within the 90s range because it weighed more. But as somewhat mentioned back in episode 1 of this podcast, the events that unfolded in my high school made me change my path. But even if I did stick around, Club Penguin as a franchise ended the moment I graduated from university. So either way, that dream has shut down. But even with the franchise gone, I would still like to know what it's like working there. We do get some snippets online from former staff members on social media, but I would like to know more from start to finish. So joining me is Chris Gliddon, also known as Polo Field online. He's the former community manager of Club Penguin, and he joins me today as he'll be sharing me his full story on what it's like to work for Club Penguin. I chose him out of all people because he has a journalism background right before working in the gaming industry, which gives me so much hope because I know that somewhere in another life, I would have been able to work in my dream job with my current credentials. Is there a reason why you call it Penguin, not Club Penguin?
Shorter.
Ah.
I mean, internally, like within the office, we would just say, "Oh, Penguin," the thing we love about Penguin, and we just, I don't know why we just shortened it to that. It was just, I don't know, Penguin. It was more specific. It was shorter than saying Club Penguin.
It's really interesting that you're now working in IT, where according to your blog and some statements you shared on social media, you used to be a music journalist before you worked for Club Penguin. What was life like when you were a journalist?
Basically, music journalism was my passion. Like, just journalism in general, just the idea of telling stories. Like, I've always been a big fan of capturing history and telling stories with it. So in my mind, I just went into journalism as an investigative journalist. In fact, like when I was interviewing Chris Heatherly when we were doing the New Horizons documentary with Penguin, he said to me, he's like, "Sheesh, I didn't realize you're going to be such an investigative journalist." And I was like, "No, that's exactly what I am, Chris." Like, that's totally me. Yeah, music journalism was just such a no-brainer because I was always I was a slacker in school, but still got A's in English, still being a slacker. So writing was something that I could do. It was something I was kind of capable of. So the mix of the two things just made sense. So I just started submitting work. And when you're a journalist, you end up doing a lot of pro bono work, which is free work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing a bunch of free work to begin with. And yeah, I would just submit pitches and I'd pitch stories and say, "Oh, I can do this." And then eventually I'd start getting 6 to 8 albums every 2 weeks, and I was just getting flooded with music to review all the time. But it wasn't my day job because I 2 kids and I had to feed them, right? So I wasn't paying the bills with music journalism.
So how did you ended up working for Club Penguin?
Yeah, so it's kind of a bizarre story. Like at the time, when Penguin was launching, so 2005, 2004, those years when Penguin Chat 3 and Penguin Chat 2 was becoming Penguin Chat 3, Club Penguin, I was working as an accountant. And so that was how I was paying the bills. But I was miserable. I just did not enjoy it at all. I'm just I'm just too creative, I guess, for better or for worse. I don't know that I'm the most talented creative person in the world or anything, but I was miserable. And so eventually I just broke down. I was like, I'm just so tired. I just can't do this anymore. I knew enough was enough when I had to sort of run through spreadsheets and I'd have to reconcile accounts, and then down to the penny. Anyone who knows about accounting, if you have a 1 cent difference between this spreadsheet and that spreadsheet, you have to do the work all over again. And I just I remember it was one reconciliation too long, and suddenly I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. So I quit. I just straight up quit. I didn't have any plan whatsoever. I just went, I'm going to quit. I'm going to have faith, and I'm just going to go. I wish I could work in like cartoons or video games or something like interesting like that. I wish I could work on the web and do websites or video games. I don't know. I have no idea how I would ever do that in this town, but whatever. I'll just do that. So I quit. And right around that time, my eldest daughter was hanging around with another kid, and that guy's mom was working at Club Penguin. She'd previously, we'd known her for years, and she was working previously at Starbucks, and then she had flipped over and became a team leader on the Club Penguin team. So she's like, oh, you should apply to this Club Penguin thing. We're growing like crazy, da-da-da. I was like, Club Penguin? What is that? And I remember logging on for the first time, and I logged on, I said some things, and I tried to type, and I don't know if I said something, and it didn't go through, but nobody responded to me. I just went, okay, and then I logged off. That was kind of my first experience, and I was like, okay, well, whatever, I'll apply. Why not? I'm not doing anything else. Got to make some money, so sure, I'll give it a shot.
Wow.
Well, I just said I applied, and I got an interview, and then went in to go for the interview. I had the interview with Nate Sawatsky, who's Gizmo, and Gizmo emails me, and he's like, all right, this is awesome. You're hired. Can you start on this date? And I remember saying to him, I was just flaky. I just said, well, I was supposed to interview John Lennon's son, or no, I was going down to review him at a concert. So I was going to a Sean Lennon show to review the show. I was like, oh, well, I can't start then. How about I start later? Oh, man. When you talk about luck, I probably shouldn't have got the job. It's so flippant about it. I just lucked out. I was very, very lucky. It was at a point in time where they just needed people who were good people to join the team to come and help respond to customers, right? Respond to parents, respond to players. So, yeah, I got in.
That's really interesting. And it's really also interesting that you know the team leader, because I remember watching Lane Merrifield's TED Talk, and he talked about how their team leader was someone from Starbucks.
And so I set out to find someone who could kind of help lead a team and make sure that we are properly taking care of this community. But rather than go the traditional route of finding some sort of recruiter and hiring in some executive or some expert from another tech company, we decided, again, go do things a little bit differently. And so instead, I decided to look for this individual at a company that had provided me with consistent, high-quality customer service every single morning. Starbucks.
You knew that person personally before Club Penguin, so that is just, wow, damn connections.
Well, it's a really bizarre world. One of the things that I love about Club Penguin is it just feels kind of homegrown. I remember when Tech 70 came to Kelowna, and both Emma and I individually kind of introduced her to the idea of, actually, you couldn't have made Club Penguin anywhere else. There's just something about Kelowna and this small town in the middle of essentially nowhere in Canada. It's a little town. It's odd, it's quirky, it has all these sort of personality flaws, and all of that just ends up in Club Penguin, really.
So I just want to know, what is your everyday workday like when you're working for Club Penguin? I know you were a community manager, you worked on the blogs. I think you controlled some of the mascots at one point. How was that like? What is an everyday workday for you?
Well, it's, so that's a complicated question because so you think about it, I was there for 8, 9 years, right? And so I did pretty much every single possible job you could do on the team. So I started right on the floor, night shift, and they're like, hang on, this guy can write reasonably well. Hey, maybe we should, maybe you could come up to the day team. I was like, okay. So then I changed from nights and went up to the day team. And then it was about a month after that. And then they're like, hey, maybe you could come over into the billing team. I was like, okay. So then I went over to the billing team, and I was like, just as long as I don't have to answer the phones, guys, because, I used to do that many, many years ago. If I don't have to anymore, that'd be cool. But they're like, yeah, no problem, Chris. You don't have to answer the phone. I was like, okay. And about a month after that, they're like, hey, Chris, can you answer this phone? I was like, okay, fine, I'll answer the phone. And then I'm answering the phone, and about a month after that, they're like, hey, Chris, there's the supervisor isn't here. Can you take this escalated call? I was like, okay. So then I started taking escalated calls, even though I wasn't the supervisor. And I was like, hang on, I feel like I've been duped into, I've been tricked into doing support phone calls. And then a spot came up on the development team, and I was just like, of course, I said I want to work in video games. I want to make stuff. So the idea of getting onto the dev team, of course, would just like you, it'd be like that's the dream, right? Just like any fan's dream. So like, excellent. I'll apply to be in QA. And they're like, okay, well, what we're looking for is somebody to QA the story, the text, edit it. I was like, I can do that. Here you go. Here's my application. So I joined the team on QA, and then basically a month later, then the Disney acquisition happened. Then I started doing archives. Honestly, this is complicated because I've done a little bit of everything. Yeah, and then they kind of came down to, Chris, do you want to be a writer? Or because I was doing a little bit of both, I was split between, okay, do you want to catalog and organize the team's content? Or do you want to be creating content, Chris? And I was like, well, when it came down to that, I was like, the decision was, personally, I was like, I want to create content. That's what I love doing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when I gave up archives, and I became the manager of the editorial team. But then the community manager thing came up. That was my pitch. I just said, hey, what we were doing as an editorial team before was we were doing all the writing. So basically we would write the blog posts or we would write the story. And we just said, okay, editorial is going to do the story, and we're going to do sort of the behind the scenes. And that's what the community team will focus on.
It's really interesting how you had to be like an all-rounder. Like you need to be skilled in almost every department before you make it to your dream job, which is quite interesting. Like in any other industry as well, especially in the arts, before you can make it to your dream job, you have to do all the scut work. You have to do all the other bits before they put you into the spotlight where you get to really showcase who you are. Hearing this from you, it's like a really huge reality check. Not gonna lie, it's like a really big reality check. And part of my head is like, in my head, it's like, holy Toledo, if I wanted to like work for Club Penguin, if I want to be like their programmer or writer or whatever, I have to do all the community support first.
Well, not necessarily. Like you can't exclude luck, right? So I mean, there's luck, and then there's sweat equity. Like if I look at marketing as an example, as an industry or a career path or whatever, the people who I would look to hire as marketing people these days are the ones who have built their own stuff. They've gone out and they haven't asked anybody's permission. They've just made something. The people who get ahead are the ones who have something to say, and they can refer to, this is the work that I've done, and this was the result of my work, right? And that's what you got to do, is just get out there and do stuff. The reason I could get into Club Penguin and move up in Club Penguin was, in addition to the luck, I had something that I could refer to. I had a portfolio. So I had already done a whole bunch of music writing. I'd had PR firms pitching to me so that they could get their band featured and start to get press for them. I was running a blog. Like all of these things I could refer to in my professional career. I just want to encourage you guys to take action for yourself.
It's really cool. Like, I really like your advice. It's like, because as of right now, getting a job is hard, especially in the arts, especially due to the pandemic. And you're here like saying like, you really have to work hard and show what you've got. You have to like show them how committed you are and everything. Just showcase yourself. And it's just like, it's probably one of the best career advice I heard of. Yes, the industry, especially the tech arts industry, is kind of, there's not a lot going on due to current world events, but it's really interesting to hear your advice as not only as someone who worked in a job where a lot of fans were like, oh, I wish I would work there, but also as as someone who's already a parent.
It's interesting because I try not to be too much of a dad, but I mean, ultimately, I'm a dad, right? So, the Club Penguin community is like, I just see it as a bunch of players that are my kids' age, right? So I've got a 21-year-old, I have a 17-year-old, and I have a 2-year-old, right? And so, like, to me, I just go, the Club Penguin community, I just see, I will always have their back because I feel a little bit parental about the community. So
now let's talk about like the oddness, like the rumors that we hear in Club Penguin, like at least in the building. These are just like small rumors and small curiosity that I and probably other people had. So the first question is it really true that Sir Pirate would wear a pirate costume every single day?
Is that the rumor that like
we see the videos, mate? Like I saw like the Harlem Shake parody and the medieval party parody, like the medieval promo, and we just see Sir Pirate in a costume all the time, and we're just like, this is like a thing, right? Like is he really wearing the costume every single day?
Well, those guys are awesome because I love those guys. The twins are amazing. Like, so when we were making videos, I mean, that was some of my favorite times because, we always knew we could count on the twins to have a cool outfit that we could do something fun with and be like, hey, guys, can you dress up? Like, it was always fun to have someone who'd be willing to just dress up silly and be thrown into a video for us, right? So when we were making videos, it was like, hey, can we throw you in a pirate costume again? Throw you in the video? Yes. Can you be a pirate for this video? Yes. It was, he was always willing. So yeah, it's great. And I mean, honestly, like those guys came up with Captain Rockhopper, right? Like they love pirates. I remember when I first joined, like they were obsessed with this one board game. I can't remember the name of it. It's like, I was going to say Puzzle Pirates, something like that. There's some game that they were playing where you're making boats with, you'd get the trading cards and then you'd bust up the trading cards and you'd make an actual physical boat out of it. They're super cool. I just remember being really struck by the twins. Like they're fun. Like they're some of the heart of Club Penguin. I love those guys. They're awesome.
Wait, so Sir Pirate created Captain Rockhopper. Are you sure this is not just Sir Pirate's self-insert that he just did? Like, oh, I want to make myself a personified canon character in the Club Penguin universe.
No, he's good that way. I mean, you can kind of tell when people tried to insert themselves into Club Penguin and force themselves in there. He didn't do that at all. He was quite cool. Like what we really wanted to do was make every player the hero of the story. And then really everything around it, like Rockhopper, etc., those are all supporting characters. They're either a mentor, some of them are villains, some of them are, getting in the way of your progress. They all play a role, but you'll notice that none of them are taking the hero position. And the reason for that is because to us, the players were the heroes, right? Like we didn't want to take away from the experience of playing the story and you being the lead character of the story.
Ah. So, what is your favorite moment when you were working for Club Penguin?
Well, I'm a highly adaptable person, so when you're asking me that question, that's a tough one. It's almost like the flavor of the month, because we had a lot of good moments.
But you have to pick one.
You
have to pick one. What is the most, like, out of everything, what do you think has to be the most memorable moment that you cherish throughout your years of working there?
I have a lot of fun memories. Like I remember, like there's the 3 characters that we came up with for our internal wiki. So we needed a wiki to keep track of everything. So early on we came up with these characters to be the mascot of the homepage of the wiki. So it's the ICE3. So we came up with the internal community encyclopedia, ICE. And in ICE, I was like, I want a mascot for ICE. So we came up with 3 unique characters for that. I wanted like 3 hip hop stars. So we picked like one of the guys from Kid and Play, another guy from Run DMC, and because it wasn't going to be seen by anybody else. And who's the other one? Oh, I think one of the guys from Public Enemy. We wanted like some like real cool hip hop guys. So we made the ICE3, And the one guy has a shirt that says donuts, and that was actually inspired by when I first joined the team. We would nickname the different tables of community support people. So we had a table of us, and we were Team Donuts. And so we just, it was just silliness. We had a bunch of people that were just, it was fun to be together. We did these unified claps and just a lot of kind of team camaraderie stuff that just ended up kind of finding its way into either the game or into internally what we did. Like, I remember when Rickrolling was a thing. 2008, it was hilarious because we had like an internal community sort of intranet where we would talk to each other. And I remember I was like, oh yeah, I was working with Skaboots, and I was like, oh, we should like put out some sort of like, we should Rickroll the entire company. So we got together and we decided to do that. So I came up with a fake Disney press release URL that was like, Disney acquires Webkins. And so I made this like Disney press release URL. And when you clicked on it, it went to the... And so I rickrolled the entire company with the... and then she sent it out through a bunch of channels too. So we basically just kept rickrolling everyone in the team. It was great.
Wait, so did that email reach like Lance or Lane or...
Yeah, it was across all of our company stuff. We just blasted it everywhere. I was like, whatever, if I get in trouble, it's fine. I'll deal with it.
Did everyone like it?
I have no idea. Probably, maybe not. I don't know. Whatever.
So what made you decide to leave Club Penguin? Like, what made you decide to close the book and go find a new chapter in your life?
I was quite burnt out. Like, by the end, I was going through a divorce that took me like quite a few years. It was quite painful. So like the last few years when I was at Penguin, I was not at my best. I was tired. You know, I was going through this divorce that was really dragging me down. And because of that, I just really wasn't performing at my best. And it's just, I was tired and I wasn't doing that well. So I just was like, you know what? I knew that I needed to change. I knew that they were going to change the team anyways. So I knew it was just sort of just a mutual thing. People say, oh, Chris, you were the community manager, but it's like only for a very short period of time was I the community manager, really. In between all that, I was managing team, right? And trying to do my best to support team members in the community. So yeah, near the end of it, it was just, I was tired. I just needed a change. Yeah, I was looking for work near the end, right? So I just was like, I know that I need a change. And sometimes a change is as good as a break. And it's been good. I mean, honestly, like if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have had all of the experience in between there that I've had, right? I wouldn't have started a company. I wouldn't have tried all the different new things that, you know, within Penguin, I wouldn't have tried. So I've worked with different mobile games companies. I've worked with, you know, e-commerce companies. I've worked with healthcare companies. I've worked with a bunch of different companies that are all quite different. It's strange because they're all completely unrelated, but then you learn something about how to do something for a different industry because your headspace is just freed up, you know? So if I were going into work on Club Penguin now, or something like Box Critters, I would come at it a completely different angle than I would have before.
What makes a good community manager?
Well, the first thing is empathy. Second thing is listening. So empathy is, first off, you really care about people. And that can be really, really hard because if people are furious at you or furious at the brand or the product or whatever, and you are trying to like bridge the gap between a player and the brand, that can be actually quite challenging emotionally. Like one of the things that was really challenging for me was, I was in between, like I essentially, when anytime anyone was angry about anything to do with Club Penguin, they would be just throwing hate at me. You're taking punches to the face from players and you're taking punches to the face from the team. And it gets a bit tiring at the time, so you kind of have to develop a thick skin as a community manager, I would say. The other thing is have fun. I mean, if you look at what the Fall Guys community manager did, he's awesome. He's like, why don't we just have fun? I think having fun is really underrated. And then listening, being curious, right? So making sure that when people have feedback, that you're keeping track of it. I can't even tell you the number of notes that I've kept. Like, I would read as many fan blogs as I could. I would read as many tweets as I could. I would read every YouTube comment. I would read it all. I'd read people's fan blogs. I'd read what they say, and I would keep track of that for the team. That's what I would spend my time doing. And it's a lot to take in. So you have to be able to take in a lot of information as well. I think the biggest thing that is helpful is having a tool where you can actually document and digest snapshots and examples of things, where you can go, okay, this seems to be a recurring trend. Like, you're looking for patterns. You're saying, okay, this person, and this person all in different ways described this problem. Like, let's take, for example, one that drove me nuts was when we decided to blow up the size of pins to be basically double the size of the penguin. Like, the pins in Penguin for a while were just massive. And I was like, I don't know why. I totally agree with the community. I don't know why they're so massive. Okay, now I have to somehow bring that feedback back to the team. And, they have to hear it in a way that's not going to hurt their feelings. You're not saying, your work sucks, but hey, we should consider doing this because it does actually feel like it's taking away the fun.
Yeah, I remember the pins back in the day. It was it's a challenge to find them, and you get rewarded. And eventually, later on, it's somehow oddly easier to find, which I don't mind. I was in really early high school, but it was also that was easy. So it's hand holding in a bit. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that the challenge for us as a team is when you start to think about Penguin as a kids game, I think it does it a huge disservice. I know for me, I know for Lance, to us, it's not a kids game. We treat it like a Mario. Nintendo doesn't look at Mario oh, how do we make a kids game? They just go, how do we make the most fun for the most people? And so I think sometimes the team was okay, well, we got to make sure that we're looking at the stats and not enough people found the pins. So we need to make it easier to find. Okay, make it bigger. Sometimes when you look at math and you don't actually think about the human side of the math, it leads you to decisions that are not the best,
So what is your reaction when you hear fans say, oh my gosh, I wish I was working for Club Penguin?
Well, I wish I could employ as many of the fans as I possibly could. If it were up to me, I would love to just hire a ton of fans and be okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, let's go. Let's go make a great game together.
Is it rude when fans say, oh my gosh, I wish I was working for Club Penguin even when the game ends?
Well, the problem is, it's it's owned by someone. You can't just, you know what I mean? It doesn't exist now. So, really putting your energy into that. Right now, it's just a nostalgia brand at this point. It's okay, well, it's not around, so we're just reflecting on our memories of it.
Is there any final words you'd like to say to the community, to former Club Penguin staff, current box creator staff, or just anyone in general?
Get it out there. Start making your own portfolio of your own ideas. Go and make something for yourselves. And I know a lot of you are already doing that anyways, but if you ever want help with that, I'm more than happy to help give you suggestions and advice. And I guess also just really thank you for bothering to listen to me talking on this podcast. If you took the time, I hope it was in any way interesting to you.
I have to say that you are the best community manager that Club Penguin ever had, in my honest opinion.
Well, thank you. I don't know if I deserve that honor, but I appreciate the kind words.
Outside my interview with Chris, I told him that I didn't feel worthy to have him as a guest in my podcast since I looked up to him and his work back when I was younger, and I felt like I was going to disappoint him. But then he tells me that he's been watching us interact in the virtual world and social media, that he's the one who should be worthy to be on this podcast. Speaking to Chris just gave me more insight on what it's like working for a company that I, as a child, was willing to strive hard for. But in the end, at least we get to hear the stories and some advice on how to achieve your dreams and reach your goals. I'd like to thank Chris Gliddon for joining me. It's been such a huge honor, and I hope we get to speak again sometime soon. My name is Ariel, and this has been another episode of Never Have I Ever. There are more topics and other missed out experiences I still have to cover. So until then, I hope you'd stick around for the next one. Heads up though, there's going to be a short break, so don't expect new episodes for a week or two. So while waiting, feel free to listen to an earlier episode of Never Have I Ever or my other podcast, Casual Nerds with Matt, over on YouTube, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.